Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. And now to honor America, please join in the singing of our national anthem. Representing the three-time Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils, Arlette.
I feel like I'm at a game. Oh my gosh. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Hey, Sam, I got to tell you, I do a lot of hockey, and I do a lot of podcasts and everything, and you guys have one of the best podcasts anywhere. It's knowledgeable, it's fun, and you do it right. So thank you for your time and for having me on the show.
Happy Devils Sunday! This is the Let's Go Devils podcast, Season 3, Episode 37, titled Mr. Devils, streaming live on the Let's Go Devils Podcast Network, on Facebook Live at Let's Go Devils Podcast, on Twitter, Periscope at Let's Go Devils Pod, YouTube live channel Let's Go Devils, and on Twitch, Let's Go Devils Podcast, all powered by Nova Product Design from Primetime Radio, and now simulcasting on the Primetime Radio Network. Well, we've got a big podcast tonight. Our special guest is the one and only Ken Daneyko, beaming him live from his home into our Primetime Radio virtual studio. I'm here with Scott, Scotty, and Shorts Guy. Kenny, how are you doing?
Hi, guys. What a introduction. You start with Arlette singing the anthem. So, obviously, this is all about the Devils. I certainly miss our fans. It's been tough mentally and emotionally for everybody, including myself. Believe me, it's hard for me to smile, so it's nice to be on with you guys, and maybe we'll get some smiles here, trying to stay positive along the way. As long as we don't talk about hockey, because I don't remember anything in the last 3 weeks now that we've been out of it. But all kidding aside, it's been tough, and certainly miss the Devils fans. We love them, and good to be on with you guys.
Kenny, thank you so much for joining us. Like you said, I just want to jump right into. I have so many questions for you, but first of all, I want to say it's a huge honor for you to be with us, and thank you very much for being here.
Well, my pleasure, fellas.
You were one of the Devils that has the privilege and the honor to be there from the very beginning and all the way into the transition of the team being a perennial Cup contender. And I just want to ask you, what was that like when in the very beginning, when you had Wayne Gretzky calling the Devils a Mickey Mouse organization, and then Lou takes over and things start to turn around? What was that whole transition for you like?
Well, first off, I mean, everybody knows it's been well documented, said in the papers along the way. I didn't know where New Jersey was when I was drafted here in 1982. And in fact, I had to ask my late mother, where's New Jersey? And I told that story umpteen dozen times, so I don't want to drag on with that, but it was the truth. But are you kidding me? I would have ran the 2,500 miles from Edmonton, Alberta, where I grew up, to get my opportunity. That was like any kid. Want a chance. Team didn't have a team name yet. It wasn't the Devils. They were still voting on it, I believe, in the Star Ledger. So when they had called me, I had said, they said, congratulations, Ken, you've been drafted 18th overall. And I dropped the phone, and my mother says, well, I suggest, it was in my kitchen, no cell phones, obviously. And she said, I suggest you ask who it is. I didn't care. I wasn't one of those guys that, I want to go there, or want to be drafted by the Edmonton Oilers because it's my hometown. I wanted to go where a team wanted me. That was the bottom line, and give me my opportunity to fulfill a dream. And I picked up the phone after an emotional call and not really believing. It was kind of early in the morning. I wasn't supposed to get drafted that early. Obviously, nowadays with technology, they know when you go to the bathroom, what you eat for breakfast, where you are every hour. Back in 1982, it was one guy that had to hunt you down. That was a scout for teams, and try to analyze and put their necks on the line for you. And I had one guy that put his neck on the line for me, Bert Marshall, in 1982, followed me around in an old beat-up Winnebago. And it was near the end of the year. I played for Seattle Breakers at the time. I think I don't even know, what are they called now? I
think they're the Thunderbirds, right?
Thunderbirds now, excuse me. Yeah, Matthew Barzell, one of the great New York Islanders, a young player, great players in the league. He was with the Thunderbirds, exactly. I couldn't even remember, but it started as the Breakers. But I expected to go, get drafted, but no idea where. I thought maybe third round at the time, and I know the draft was in Montreal. It was 2 hours earlier. Back then, money was an issue. Agents only flew first-rounders there. Not everybody went to the draft. And if they didn't think you're going the first round, well, they weren't going to pay for a ticket. And obviously, my agent didn't think I was going the first round because he didn't pay for my ticket to go to Montreal and the draft. And by the way, I fired him 18 months later. And that's a true story. And he knows the reason why. We talked about it on a radio station probably 3 years ago and laughed about it, but he didn't believe I was going the first round, but either did I. So I get a call. My mom wakes me up early in the morning, and I said, listen, Mom, it's too early. It's somebody playing a prank. And sure enough, she goes, just get down here, Kenny. My mom was a little petite lady of 5 foot tall, and I pick up the phone and said hello in a groggy voice, a little tired, went out with my brother for a couple of pops. I was legal drinking age back then to calm the nerves. But I picked up the phone, and they said, congratulations, Ken, you've been drafted 18th. I dropped the phone, tears in my eyes, and said, you're not going to believe this. My brother, sisters, and mom and dad in my kitchen, and our neighbors, some people are our neighbors that they called over that we were close with, and said, you're not going to believe this. I was just drafted in the first round, and 18th overall. There was only 21 teams at the time. My mother, who's never swore in her life, said, you've got to be kidding me. Holy blank. I don't want to swear. I couldn't believe it. And they just knew, because I told her 50 times a day since 7 years old, I'm going to play in the National Hockey League. She used to pacify me and say, yeah, Kenny, I know. Didn't know if I was dreaming a little bit big, and thought maybe I was reaching a little too far, because there was 10 Ken Daneykos in every corner in Edmonton, Alberta, where hockey is, we all know, a religion, a way of life as soon as you come out of your mother's womb. So anyway, I pick up the phone back again, and I said, oh yeah, who is this, by the way? True story. Didn't even care where I was drafted. They said, it's New Jersey. I covered the phone and said, Mom, where's New Jersey? I have no freaking idea. And sure enough, I knew it was near the big city, New York, whatever, but I had no clue, and she didn't know either. And it didn't matter. They were giving me my opportunity, and it was all because of one scout, Bert Marshall. They did not want to take me, believe it or not. If you want to get the in-depth story of it, the hierarchy of the Devils said, we don't know enough about them, and obviously we did. That was internet stuff, and I played in Western Canada. There was no internet back then, no cell phones, all that kind of thing, and so scouts put their neck on the line. Bert Marshall, who still scouts in Carolina, and I had a good laugh when the draft was in 2012. I just wanted to tell him how grateful I was to him. I gave him a big hug, said, Bert, I haven't seen you in a long time, and I understand that you put your neck on the line for me. I never really got to talk to you about that. He says, Kenny, you don't know half the story. He says, am I willing to put my job on the line? Bert told the Devils organization and the hierarchy at the time, I think Max McNabb or Billy McMillan was the GM, and Marshall Johnson was, I think, assistant GM. Or one of those guys. He was director of player personnel. He was the one who called me, and I love Marsh to this day. But he was honest. He didn't want to take me because I wasn't ranked there. And Bert Marshall said, he's going to play 15 years for you. I guarantee you. I just followed him around for 2.5 weeks at the end of the year, and in the playoffs, watched him for about 10 games. I promise you he'll play 15 years for you. Mm-hmm. So it brings goosebumps to me, even telling the story, and I've told it over and over again a lot. But it does because, it shows that hard work and believing in yourself and dedication pays off, and having a guy that stuck his neck out for me. And they told him, Bert, your job's on the line with this one. He says, I'll put my job on the line. And Bert told me, he says, Kenny, you didn't have to thank me. I thank you. He says, I'm still scouting because that pick, because you played 20 years, I told him you'd only play 15. So I know I was long-winded there, but it was a story that's so near and dear to my heart and true and real and surreal to me, because I am very grateful to people that were so important throughout my career, whether it was your Bantam coach or people that stuck their necks out for you, your junior coach, or along the way, the Tom McVees, the great coaches who were hard on me but really loved me because they believed in me. But a guy like Bert Marshall, who scouts really had to put their necks on the line for you. And I was very grateful, and I just wanted to be part of something. The team wasn't very good early. You're absolutely right. Now that we got to that part, it didn't matter to me. Are you kidding me? I was playing in the National Hockey League. I was a kid. I almost made the team at 18 years old. I wanted to play now. I believed in myself and actually probably should have made the team. I had a real good camp. They decided to send me back to junior, but I was up for a couple of weeks. People don't know during the regular season, just didn't play. Got sent back down, then made my debut game 1 of 1983 in Madison Square Garden, so pretty exciting to play in, one of the world's famous arenas, obviously, in Madison Square Garden. It was pretty neat for me to have my first game in New York, and 19 years old at the time when my mother flew there. She didn't fly too much, didn't like too many big cities, and came to the game. And, she was getting a little older at the time, and she says, I don't care if he ever plays another game again, to my brother, who was there as well, my older brother. He told me 100 times a day he was going to play in the National Hockey League. I just can't believe it. She flew in, flew out right away. Right back to Edmonton, came back a few times after that, but that's all she wanted to see. Was my first time playing a game in the National Hockey League, because that's all I wanted to do, and because it was Bert Marshall sticking his neck out, a scout who I still love to this day, and a guy that really believed in me. And lo and behold, Lou told the story as well when Lou came around a little bit later, and after 5-6 years of my career, when I retired in 2003, that's when I said to Lou, I said, Lou said, Kenny's going to retire. And I got another great story that everybody knows with Lou. And obviously when I came to God, I'm all over the map right now, guys, but the things pop to your head.
Keep going.
If you want to
keep going.
Go. Or ask me any questions, don't worry, I'll stop. But things come to your head. I don't have a great memory, so that's why I'm flowing everywhere. And then it really comes to you, things that hit you. So to go along with Bert Marshall's telling the Devils I was going to play 15 years, well, Lou kind of told me the same thing, but in a harsher way, after I'd already played about 4 or 5 years of those lean years, and Wayne Gretzky calling us Mickey Mouse, who I'm a good friend with. It didn't matter what he said at the time. We weren't a good team. That was the bottom line. I know the fans take it personally. Players, we didn't. I took it personal just from the standpoint that we had to get better, and it was probably he was spot on at the time, and it was probably the best thing that's ever said to us, because maybe it motivated us a little bit to get better and get better draft picks from the organization, from the scouting staff to the young players, to starting to believe in ourselves. And until obviously, yes, Lou Lamoriello came and gave us some discipline, some belief, some respect, even though he was an unknown coming to the Devils. But second year around, I know you've had Bruce Driver on, my good friend and roommate back early in my career. So this story kind of relates to the Bruja, and I've told this story many times, but Lou comes first year. I'm a, physical player, protect teammates, penalty kill. Wasn't getting much PP time. Did a little bit earlier before Lou. Bruce Driver goes down. He's a power play guy, second power play unit, I believe, at the time. He gets injured. I get on the power play. 4 games, I have 4 points in the power play. This is early in Lou's tenure with the Devils. Just things that, he knew. I wore my emotion on my sleeve, my intensity right away. He could read me like a book. So Bruce comes back off the power play. He sees me moping around the dressing room. We play the Bruins one night, and he says, Kenny, come to my office after the game. I'm going, oh, no, what did I do wrong now? And I wasn't sure what he wanted to talk about. He knew exactly what was going on. Takes me in, says, Kenny, he says, what's bothering you? I know something's bothering you. I can feel it. I said, well, Lou, I had 4 points in 4 games in the power play. I couldn't have done much better, and now I'm seeing no power play time. He looks at me very calmly and sitting in his desk and says, Kenny, he says, Bruce is a power play guy. You're not. Pretty simple. You're a penalty kill guy. You protect teammates. You're physical. And he says, let me tell you a little story. He says, I liken my team to an orchestra. And there's violinists, there's pianists, there's drummers, and everybody has to play their instrument to a T to make beautiful harmony, beautiful music together. That's the only way we're going to have success here. What instrument do you think you are? And I wasn't the brightest bulb in the tree, but I knew where he was going. And certainly I looked at him and kind of grumbled under my breath with a little more superlatives, even though Lou was a very intimidating man. I think he liked me because I was a guy that would bark back. One of the rare players that would bark. Didn't matter my age, didn't matter. I would say whatever I felt at the time, and I said, yeah, I know I'm a drummer, but. I kept saying, but. And he goes, well, there's no buts. You're going to get a lot of ice time. This is your role. And I get up, I throw the chair. His secretary outside heard it, thought me and Lou had many of these instances where we were going to go at it, I think. But everybody thought, he was disciplinarian. He was. Well, he liked if you stood up to him, even though I was wrong most of the time. So I throw the chair. I was ready to slam the door. I was real pissed off. Excuse me if I'm allowed to say that on the podcast. I was pissed. I was angry. And because I wanted to be more. I wanted to do more. Every player wants to be this guy. And now I understood when you hear coaches use that cliche, well, you got to find your role. You got to understand your role. And I know the game's trends. The game has evolved and it's more puck moving, everything else, but it's still the same. Everybody still needs a role. And so many good players, young players, I preach to constantly saying you want to be the jack of all trades, master of none. I got a lot of points in junior. I was an offensive guy. I was a defensive guy. I was a tough guy. I could do it all in junior. I wanted to do that in the National Hockey League. Lou made sure I understood I couldn't do what he wasn't there yet. I couldn't do what Scott Niedermayer could do. His skating ability coming out of junior. In fact, not many defensemen could do it. So he wanted to make sure I understood my role. He says, and by the way, Kenny, when I threw the chair, he goes, if you want to play the violin, I'll call 18, 20 other teams right now and see if they'd like a violinist. Would you like me to do that? So he says he's going to call teams to see if I wanted to be traded. And then I'm ready to slam the door. And he goes, oh, by the way, very calmly again, not yelling at me or nothing. He goes, Kenny, if you master that drum, you're going to play in the National Hockey League for 15 years. And that's where the Burt Marshall 15 years, the Lou 5 years later saying 15 years kind of comes together. I slammed the door. I was angry, but I took it to heart. I listened. There were so many players that were more talented than me that I played junior against. And I always wondered after a couple of years in the National Hockey League, what happened to that guy? Because we're so enthralled in our career and focused on us that we forget about players or friends or teammates. And I go, wow, he was so good in junior, and he played a little bit in the NHL, had a cup of coffee, played a year, played 100 games, played 50 games, but just never stuck. And I understood why 10 years after my career was over and retired and try to preach to young guys, because they didn't find a role that they could stay consistent in the National Hockey League. They tried to do too much, and it became a detriment and actually couldn't play. So when Lou said that to me, it's easier said than done for young guys to do that. He said that to me. He didn't care if I scored a goal. He didn't care if I went over the red line. He had a specific role for me. That was kill penalties, play tough, move the puck to the forwards quickly, do whatever it was, protect teammates, yes, because that was prevalent back then, and I didn't mind that part of the game. So that was something I enjoyed and knew that. He didn't have to tell me that, but he just made sure I understood what was going to make me successful in the league, more importantly, what was going to help the New Jersey Devils become a better team, become a playoff team, and eventually, someday, hopefully a championship team, which happened. And I remember being so mad, but what I did was went home, I sulked, I brewed for a little bit. I said, you know what? He's right. Just do what you're capable of. You've got a role, and it's an important role. Might not get all the accolades every day in the paper. You might not be on the score sheet, but it's a guy that, can find your niche. And I just wanted to be part of a team, part of something, part of winning. And those lean years were the best thing. I was playing in the National Hockey League. I thought I was going to get an opportunity to play for the Devils because they weren't as good. And no, when the team was bad, some guys get disgruntled, whether it was contract disputes, whether the team's not good. I wanted to stay. I wanted to be a New Jersey Devil. I wanted to win in New Jersey. Sounds maybe corny, but they gave me my chance. It was the truth. I still feel that way 37 years later, being with the organization, that I wanted to be a Devil and I wanted to be part of the solution, whatever my role was for my skill and ability. So when I retired in 2003, we had a press conference, Lou next to me. And right away, first thing I said, this guy next to me said, if I understood my role, I'm going to play 15 years. And I said, just to tick him off, I played 20. Lou, I thought was going to drop to the ground because he is a funny guy. And he remembered exactly what I was talking about. That meeting, he uses that meeting in some of his corporate stuff or he tells me, he goes, Kenny, I can't tell you in Toronto, in Long Island, how many times I've used this speech on young guys and told them about you playing almost 1,300 games, 175 more in the playoffs, and you raised the cup 3 times. And he says, that's a pretty good example that I continue to use on a daily basis to try to nail it home to guys that you got to understand your role along the way. But no, I didn't want to be anywhere else. I wanted to be in New Jersey. They gave me my chance. They didn't have a team name when I came here, but the Devils were what it was. I wanted to get implanted into the community, into the state. I stayed year-round right from day one, still here to this day, and wouldn't want it any other way. And, yes, the championship certainly helped to come full circle because usually you're traded by the time. A lot better players or more skilled players got traded along the way that were very important to the growth of our team and the turning the corner in '88, and that was the Mullers, my great friends, and Verbeeks, and who went on to have great careers, and the Joey Sorellas, and I go on down the list to Sean Burks, who got traded, who was so instrumental for a short period of time in goal, which we know how important goaltending is. But all those guys along the way were traded because that's what you do. You got to trade good players to get good players. Fortunately, I heard some rumors, threats from Lou at times with my activity away from the ice because he knew I like to go hard on and off the ice, and he didn't mind that as long as I came to play. But he used to threaten me a little bit that he was going to trade me at times, and he would get me back in line. But he knew I wanted to be a Devil, and he wanted me to be a Devil, and thank God he kept me around because usually you're traded by the time you win a championship. We thought we were going to be there a lot after '88 and that great run at the end of the year and almost getting to the Stanley Cup Finals, Game 7 against the Bruins to go to the Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals, losing. Well, you find out it's not that easy to win. And 7 years later, I was still here, very gratefully still in New Jersey to hoist that cup, which was everything to me and just the epitome of kind of what you dream about playing in the league. The next thing you dream about is winning a Stanley Cup. And I used to carry a garbage can around at 10 years old, silver garbage can, pretending it was the Stanley Cup. So everything been turned out better. I'm just grateful they didn't trade me, man. It was pretty awesome. And then go on win it a couple more times and hoist the Stanley Cup. 2003 certainly was no better way to go out, shall I say. And getting back in the lineup when your role diminishes. I mean, it was a storybook ending, and grateful to Pat Burns at the time, even though we didn't see eye to eye. Boy, we didn't. We were banged heads, and God rest his soul. But I was pretty grateful to him and handed him a cigar at the end and said, I know we had differences, man. I was back that you put me back in, and I didn't think you were making the right decision at the time because I just wanted to win now. I wanted other guys to win. I was part of it. I played a lot of playoff games. I'm going, now I think you're being crazy. If I make a mistake that costs us, I'm going to be really, really, really devastated when he thought it was going to spark the team, electrify the building, and it did exactly that. And so that was a great way to go out. So basically, I told you everything in a nutshell, and I've told these stories many, many times. I haven't been on with you guys or maybe your audience, and some people haven't heard it along the way, but I kind of threw it all out there, and you guys can ask me more. There's a lot more stories. I have plenty. Or let's talk about the current Devils. What the heck? But I got going because I've had nothing to do in here. I've been pent up like everybody else, and I figured I'd reminisce about my career from day one with my mother, my late great mother, and all the way through to the great John McMullen, who I loved him like a father. And lo and behold, I'm still here and loving the Devils and loving everything about them now and how they treat the fans, and certainly Blitzer, Josh Harris, and David Blitzer for what they're doing around the community. I mean, that to me, that means a lot to me because obviously I've been here longer than anyone that know all the people, know the families, and know everybody suffering through these tough times. So to see these guys step up to the plate the way they have, and they've just treated all us alumni guys and guys like me first class, from the Scott O'Neills to the Hugh Webbers, and those are guys that, they get it. They get the history. They get the passion of guys like me, and all I care about is this organization winning. Yeah, I work for the team. Yeah, I do the broadcast. But I'm more a fan, just like you guys. I want them to win. I want their success. I believe it, and that's what I love. And these guys, though, I don't take that for granted. I really don't, because I've been through a few owners along the way in my tenure, mostly the first 20 years with John McMullen and Jeff Vanderbeek, who was a real nice man and a guy who became a friend. But, when these guys came in, to see them care about the history and care about the community, you can't beat it. I'm the luckiest guy in the world to be as part of this Devils organization as long as I have. And do we got to fix this?
We're lucky to have you, Kenny. We're lucky to have
I
that.
need my wife to help me. She knows this thing's came up again, huh?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
We can still see you there. It's okay.
She's my technical guru. There we go. We couldn't see. All right. That's Sam, right?
There we go.
Sorry about that.
That's him in the corner.
I was on a roll, and I don't know anything about how to fix the technical issues. Thank God my wife did. But are we done? I haven't given you guys a word.
All right, so Kenny, here's my question. So, what was it like to, we know you as number 3, Ken Daneyko. So, what was it like to see your number 3 get raised up to the rafters? And was number 3 your first choice of number when you got to New Jersey?
They could have given me 103, 00, didn't matter. I was getting my chance to play in the National Hockey League. I just wanted to be on that ice. So, no, I wore plenty of numbers in junior. I wasn't a big superstitious guy like so many players are, because even junior I started really young, so I never got the number I wanted. I think when I went to juniors in Yorkton Terriers, I don't even remember the number I wore. I think 22, and then I wore 18 for the Spokane Flyers, who was only in the Western Hockey League for a year and a half, but I was a young 16-year-old kid. There wasn't many 16-year-olds. So I took what they gave me. Then I went to Seattle, and I believe – God, I barely remember the team I was drafted from. I was number 5. I did want number 5 in New Jersey when I came here, but that was Phil Russell's number, a great mentor of mine, only here for the Devils a couple years, but those early guys, the Dave Lewis's, Mel Bridgman's, Phil Russell's, Chico Resch, obviously still a part of the organization. Joel Quenneville, great coach for many, many years. All those guys, were big mentors, defensemen, partners at times of mine on defense. And, obviously I wasn't going to take anybody's number, and they happened to have number 3 open. Dave Hutchison had worn it, only played a handful of games for the Devils. I guess, I don't know, something along the lines of 40 or 40, in the 40 range. And 3 became available, and somehow, some way I got it. And that was getting it as a 19-year-old and being up and down and in the minors for a whole year, scratching and clawing to get my way back up. But that number 3 was still available somehow. So thank God they were saving it for me. And now I love it. That's my number through and through. My daughter's a diehard Devils fan, 25 years old now, and she wears 3 everywhere. That's our family number. So yes, I'm very prideful in it now, because That was my New Jersey Devils number. But going in, I just wanted to play. To be raised to the rafters, surreal, humbling, especially for a guy like me that, I look at the guys that I'm up there with, and the great Scotty Stevens, Hall of Famer, Niedermeyer, Hall of Famer, Brodeur, Hall of Famer, Patrick Elias, I hope Hall of Famer eventually. Obviously I'm biased, think he should be, and the greatest offensive player in Devils history. But, my skill level wasn't there from that standpoint, but it shows you, and it shows young kids that come in the organization. I look at all the messages that can be sent and taught along the way, that if you're loyal, you work your tail off, you bleed your colors, good things can happen to you. And how I've played the most games in Devils history, I'm confused by that at times. I know Brodeur came darn close, and Patrick as well, and circumstances, but that didn't matter to me. Whoever breaks it, somebody's going to break it one day. But my point being is really that I'm a blue-collar guy like a lot of the Devils fans, and I think that's why I could relate to them so well, and the work ethic, and you got to earn everything you get. You're not the most gifted or skilled player or whatever it may be, and they can relate to that. And I gave it my all, and to have my number retired was just a great thrill. The best thrill of it all was when it was moved to the Prudential Center, and because my son didn't really get it back then. He was 2003. He was 4 years old, I guess, when we were retired at the Meadowlands. So 2007, he's 8 years old, I believe it is, or 2006 it was retired. Excuse me. And then when we went so he was 7 years old, but he gets it, but didn't understand it as well until 4 years later. He's 12 years old. My math's bad here. And he points to the rafters and says, "Hey, Dad, that's my number." My son's not even a big hockey fan, but just it became real to me, surreal at the time. He pointed, he says, "That's my name up there," and it was pretty cool. And I'm grateful and honored, obviously, and it was a real privilege to have that night. But for me, those nights, it's a great thing for your family, and it's wonderful accolades, and it's surreal and humbling, but it's for the fans. It's for the fans to celebrate. To me, it was all about them, because to me, the fans were everything to me, and the support they gave me and my family, and ups, downs, in-betweens. When I gave the puck where made some bad plays, they always stuck with me, because they knew I'd scratch and claw and fight my way back and do whatever I could to help the team win, and they could relate to that. They accepted mistakes from me. That's why those nights to me are all about the fans.
Oh, go ahead, John.
No, I was waiting for Scotty to go, but Scotty may have
Oh,
froze.
there he is.
Oh,
Hey.
I'm back. Hey, Kenny. Well, it's a pleasure for you coming on, man. Nice to talk to you. I feel like, I'm out in Los Angeles, so I'm always watching the game.
Oh, you
broadcast.
are?
Yeah, I feel like you're my friend, because I hear you on the game broadcast all the time, because I'm always watching the game, so it hasn't been on. I feel like my buddy hasn't been around here. But I just wanted to ask you, first and foremost, like, how you feeling, and what have you been up to? Because we all been cramped up in our apartments and our houses. I've done more push-ups and sit-ups in these last 3 weeks than I can't remember in my lifetime. So what have you been up to? Has it been movie night every night? What's been keeping you busy?
I have stayed home for pretty well 3 weeks straight, for sure. And, the first week for me, I'm a very positive guy, glass half full guy, and in general and in life, and you get knocked down, you get yourself back up. And when you have something unprecedented like this happen to our nation and the world, it's pretty, again, humbling, right? I mean, because we can't see it, we can't feel, we can't do nothing about it. I always felt I was strong enough, no matter what, mentally, physically, to overcome anything, right? That first week, I was pretty depressed. I'm not going to lie. I know a lot of people are going through some tough times, mentally, emotionally, financially, and I pray and hope sooner than later, this pandemic gets better, obviously, for a lot, not just, yes, I miss sports, I miss the game, I miss the fans, but for friends and restaurant owners and everybody out there that, lives day by day or weekly, that's what's been devastating me. And those things, all that thing came to be a reality, and thinking about, people you're close to along the way, that first week especially. And I got out of my funk. I started to run. I've been running more than I ever have again, just like you, doing the push-ups and I've gotten outside and I've started to run again and jog, and I could barely get around the block the first day, and slowly but surely I'm getting better and better. So we always look at the silver lining. You start doing something to keep yourself strong mentally and obviously physically. When you go outside and go for a run, it clears your mind and gets you moving again. And instead of first week, like I said, I sat on the couch and I have watched some great series. I watched Ozark, best show on TV by a mile.
Oh, I love that.
Awesome. I watched The Lion King, Tiger King, whoever he is. Those people are absolutely, crazy. That was intriguing. Finished that with my wife pretty quickly, but can't believe it. I mean, and I'm an animal lover, and so you get a little bit torn at times, thinking, are they taking care of them well enough?
Distraction.
all the distraction, interesting characters. So I've been up and down like all of us. But now I'm just trying to be positive. This has helped. Believe it or not, why I was rambling out of the gate for about 15 minutes, reminiscing on my career. I think it was kind of a mental therapy for me too, to get back in the mix, because I hadn't even thought about hockey. I thought about the world and life and what's important in life. And obviously sports is a nice deterrent, distraction. Fans, we all love it, just like I do, when times are tough. But when everything's taken away from you, globally around the world, you all of a sudden put things in perspective, what's important in family, and can't even see my kids because they're quarantined on their own. But just so many things come to light, right? I mean, it's crazy, but the front line, people on the front line, and not just all the doctors and nurses and all the staff members at hospitals, the grocery clerks, and you guys, I know a few of your teachers, teaching the kids and doing your tremendous work. I mean, those are the real heroes, and those are the people I salute. And I'm going to appreciate even more. I think I've come full circle in my lifetime, when it's all about you and your sports and you're a pro and everybody's patting you on the back because they admire you or love hockey or love your teams. But I have a deep appreciation for the police officers, firefighters, the EMS people, just everybody right now. And you know what? It puts it all in perspective for me. But yeah, I want sports back too, and it will come back eventually, and we'll all get back to normal. But I just want everybody to stay healthy, certainly. And I know it's getting worse before it gets better. That's what they say this week. But my heart and prayers go out to everybody that's lost loved ones or dealing with it. And I know we've all been touched. I know I've been touched too. Judge Connie, my dear friend, passed because of this horrific pandemic. And yes, he was older, but it didn't matter. He was healthy as a horse still, and he contacted the virus, and he didn't last much longer. And I lived with him, and Scott Niedermeyer lived with him, Brendan Shanahan, Craig Willan, and he kind of took us in. He was part of our family and so well respected, and he had such an influence in all our lives. And you put all those things, you start to think about all those things and how grateful you are for people like Judge Connie, and it broke my heart for his family because he was just loved by everybody, no more than his grandkids and his wife, Lucille, who I talked to right after she passed. But they had season tickets from day one right by the glass, and I was crushed. So we've all, and I'm sure we all have in one way or the other been touched along the way here, but with social distancing, stay home, right? And do the right thing right now. Listen to the medical experts. That's all I'm trying to do, and trying to relay to people that and friends that look up to you, or because we're sports guys along the way, and they admired you. But that's the only thing if I can relay or lend a hand or inspire or give a good message, of an upbeat message. That's what I'm going to try to do, instead of sitting and wallowing and on my couch because worried about what's going on around us right now.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly. Kenny, we have a fan of yours on the phone line right now. His name is Durango Steve. Durango, you're on with the Let's Go Devils podcast. You have a question for Kenny?
Yes, great show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And Kenny, I got three things for you for the great number three. Number one, first and most importantly, thank you for everything that you've done for us. The New Jersey Devils would not exist without your personal sacrifice, your hard work. You sacrificed your body for us. You gave everything to us. Every night on that ice, every time I sat my butt in that seat, I knew number 3 was giving it all every night. And I want to thank you for that from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, man. Much appreciated. Still surreal when I hear those things. Thank you, pal. It's really appreciated.
Great. Number 2, real quick, I always wanted to tell you if I ever got to meet you. So the night comes, you're going to have your big retirement, your number's going to go up to the arena, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. It turns out that night was my daughter's Sweet 16 party. So there was no way I could get out of not going to the Sweet 16.
No, absolutely not.
Yep. So I walked into the restaurant that night. I walked up to the bartender. I gave him a $100 bill. I said, put the channel on the Devils game. Do not let anybody turn that channel all night long.
Much respect. Thank you, pal. That's a great story. But no, you can't miss your daughter's Sweet 16. Absolutely not. And you were there in spirit, and I appreciate that.
Thanks, buddy. And the last thing from my personal interest, tell me about Ty Domi. Give me a Ty Domi story.
Oh, boy. Well, look, I couldn't stand him when we played against each other, obviously. And Ty's Ty, I know. And he said something crazy recently, which is not him, because he's a good friend. I love the guy. Hated him when I played against him. Had many brawls against him early in his career, and he used to, after his career, or shall I say even late in his career, he'd line up against me when he was a Toronto Maple Leaf after I only fought him a couple times with the Rangers. He's had the most fights in history. The kid was tough as nails, a little bit of a nut, as we know we all were back then, and I didn't particularly love to fight him because he had a head like as hard as a stone. But he lined up to me, and I was getting older, and I'm going, oh, no, Ty, I really don't want to do this anymore. He goes, oh, I'm not fighting you anymore. I just wanted to thank you for all those, for early on you accepting my challenge when I was trying to make a name for myself early on in his career. I said, I didn't like it at all. Ty says, no, I respect you, Ken. He says, we're not fighting anymore. When he lined up, when he was a Toronto Maple Leaf, and I was getting older anyway, and he was too tough by that time, probably. But no, he became a friend. But I didn't like what he said. I'm not going to get into it. I only saw a little bit. But since you brought it up, Scott Stevens' family is one of the toughest, if not the toughest defenseman I've ever played against. There's a personal thing with him. I separate it but Scott Stevens, I'll go to the end of there for him. He's my captain. He was as good as it gets. Hall of Famer, one of the best defensemen ever. They have something personal going, and I haven't talked to Ty since. But I'm going to bring it up to him, saying, what are you thinking? You probably, shouldn't have said it. And sometimes things come out of your mouth during podcasts like this where guys drag it out of your mouth. God, he had some deep, obviously. He said some things. I'm not going to rehash it. I never commented on it before, but Scotty's family, I love him, and he knows Scotty was one of the toughest players that's ever played the game. So anyway, but fans and everybody get riled up about it. I took it with a grain of salt because that's something personal, and I separate it. But no, Scott Stevens' family. So everybody say, well, how can you still like Tatum? I deal with him on an individual basis personally, but I will bring it up to him. Haven't talked to him since. And say I didn't like it, didn't respect it.
Great. Thank you so much. Great show, guys. Have a great night. I look forward to meeting you one day, Mr. Daneyko. God bless you and the best of health to you.
All right, my man. Thank you for calling in, and appreciate you giving that guy $100 to watch a very special night for me and my family.
So, Kenny, I have to ask you. I have a million questions to ask you in regards of your career and the current Devils and everything else. I know all three of us do, but the one thing I'm really curious about, if you could pick one of the 3 cups that you won, which one do you feel is the most special to you, and why do you feel it's so special?
You know what? I've been asked. It's a great question. I've been asked it many, many times, as all guys that have won the Stanley Cup or won it on a few occasions. We get asked that. Well, what's one? A lot of people think the first one's the most special, or the one that means the most because it's the first time and it's a dream come true. And That's true to an extent for me. It was a whirlwind. It was a party. It was a dream. But I don't think I absorbed it as much as the second one. Excuse me there. But so the first one, they all had a different meaning to me, but I think pretty equally in importance as far as what they meant to me. First one, great. Party. Dream come true. That was a crazy bunch of guys in that 95 team, that character guys. That just totally different team than maybe the 2000 team, which was probably our most talented, and top to bottom, we should have won the Stanley Cup. We were dominant. We had an unbelievable hockey team but then, and it was the second one. So I really, for me, everybody might have a different feel. The other guys that have won 3 times, us 5 guys that have won 3 with the Devils. But for the second one, for me, was I really soaked it in and understood the sacrifice, the dedication it takes. Your teammates, you appreciate your teammates so much. And I certainly probably appreciated them even more in 2000. Every guy, the importance of every role, not just your star guys in and out of the lineup, guys that score a big goal and then might not play the next night. You need 30 guys come playoff time to go 4 grueling rounds. So I really soaked it in, and the second one was our best team. We were so good as far as talent, and could play the game any way you wanted it. Physically, defensively, offensively, we were one of the top scoring teams in the league that year as well. So we really had it all, and obviously the great Marty Brodeur in that. And then 2003, where my role was diminishing. There's no question. I was 39 years old. I was getting older. So it's hard. That's hard on you mentally, tough on you. I missed my first playoff game in Devils history. I had played every game in the playoffs, midway through the playoffs there against Boston. It was tough, but I understood kind of. I was hurt, because you're always hurt because you're a competitor. You want to play. But I knew going in this was a possibility. Didn't make it any easier. But along the way, then in and out, then played game 6 and 7 against Ottawa, thinking for sure I'm going to start the Stanley Cup playoffs or the finals against Anaheim, and I'm not in. I'm going, how can I play game 6 and 7, not in there? And then that's because you're a player and you're into it and you're emotional. And I knew my role was different, and I had to make sure I was prepared to play if I was going to get in the finals. But it was about being a leader and mentoring young guys like Trevodosky's, who was there, and making sure he understood that I wasn't mad that you're in my spot or not. We're all in this together to win. I was at a different stage. Yeah, it doesn't make it any easier because you want to be in there, but I started to understand a little bit more. I knew my career was winding down, and you just absorb the 20 years, and you want to win one more time, no matter what, whether you're in the lineup, out of the lineup, and then obviously to go into game 7 and the storybook ending. So that was as meaningful as any Stanley Cup to me, because my last shift was playing the last shift, hoisting the Stanley Cup. I mean, I knew my career was over in December. I thought maybe I could play one more year. In fact, Lou and me had talked about an extension. And he says, Kenny, you're going to play as long as you want here. But when it came time to retire, when we hoisted the cup, Lou took me in a week later and says, so what do you want to do? And I knew what he wanted to hear. He knew it was time for me to retire. He needed some young guys to step in. It's about the crest and the logo on the front. And other guys were ready to be New Jersey Devils, and my career was over. And I said, Lou, I'm going to say what you want to hear. I'm ready to retire. He had a big smile on your face and said, you got a job in this organization as long as you want, Kenny. And he was I said, I know you're happy I'm retired. He goes, I was praying you didn't make it difficult on me. Because it was an easy decision. It's so easy, because getting him back in game 7. And so everyone had a real different meaning to me, and special meaning in a different way. And I'm sure you ask the Brodeurs or Niedermayers and Stevens, they might have a little different answer, but all will tell you they were all pretty darn important and special. And I don't know if one was better than the other. A lot of guys say the first one. For me, I say it's equal. I really do, in different perspectives.
Kenny, I'll never forget. This is my biggest Ken Daneyko moment. Was Game 7 before when they were doing the scratches. If you would have heard how loud the crowd got when they skipped over your number because everybody was praying not to hear number 3 scratch for Game 7, the 2003 Stanley Cup Finals. That place roared. I've never heard Continental Airlines.
I heard it in the dressing room. Believe me.
Did you really? Okay. I had
goosebumps. I almost had tears in the room. I'm going, I got to play a Game 7 here. I was acting like a rookie. Believe me. That's how I felt. I got a great story for that. You guys got about another 3 hours because I could give you a moment.
We got plenty of time.
But this one here quickly. So we fly back from Anaheim. I think it was a Wednesday game, Game 6, I believe. Fly all the way back. Don't take the red eye. We fly back, get the rest. Fly back. Don't get back into New Jersey about 6 o'clock. Go right to the hotel because, we stayed in the hotel even for home games, as Lou kind of started that tradition to keep us together. But obviously a lot of teams doing the Stanley Cup Final, I would believe, and especially there was only a day in between. So the long trek from Anaheim back to Jersey, I'd already resided to the fact I was not playing. I'm going, there's no way. I thought I was getting in Game 5. After we lost 2 in Anaheim, I'm going, he's got to put me back in Game 5 for a spark, for maybe emotion, kind of what you talked about in Game 7. But by now, I was already over being upset, being frustrated, just kept working hard in practice. Now I just wanted to win. It was, I played my part. I didn't expect to be in a Game 7, not in a million years. So we get back to the hotel. We're going to have a team meal around 7:30. Right at 7 o'clock, Pat Burns, who I hadn't talked to the whole finals basically because, he's focused on coaching the team and I hadn't played in the first 6 games. Kenny, I want to talk to you. Takes me outside the hotel and says, you're in tomorrow night. Don't tell anybody. And turned and walked away from me. Didn't say nothing else. I'm like, what? I turned total emotional going, is this guy nuts? He's completely, utterly, certifiably nuts. I haven't played in 2 weeks. Should have played in Game 5, I thought, if I'm being honest with what I was thinking at the time. But now I didn't care about playing against him. Just win the damn Stanley Cup. And I'll celebrate with everybody just as much. It doesn't matter. Everybody's part of it. And I get on the phone. I call a good buddy of mine. And I go, you're not going to believe this. And he goes, you're in tomorrow night. I go, how the hell did you know? Because I said, I am shocked. I had tears in my eyes. He heard I was choking up with him. He goes, Kenny, I knew you'd be in. He says, I knew it. They want the emotion. Game 7. They want everything counts. The fans, just what you talked about, and it was Pat Burns that talked to Scott Stevens the day before and says, what do you think if I put Daneyko back in? And Scotty said, I think it might be a good idea to give us that whatever you need, want every little edge you can have because Game 7 is a coin toss. Doesn't matter where you're playing or who's favored or who's not. Maybe it can give us a little lift, and I knew I wasn't going to play a ton. I was play my little role, but I just didn't want to make a mistake. And I talked to my buddy outside when I was on the phone, and I said, he's crazy. I said, I think he's making the wrong decision now. That's what I told my buddy on the phone when he told me. And he goes, Kenny, it's like riding a bike. How many of these you played in? Over 1,400 games, playoffs and regular season. And then he kind of calmed me down. I said, yeah, you're right. I'll be ready. So, but I was like a rookie. 7. I was like a
just
rookie before the game.
7.
Just the game.
Yeah, just Game 7 of the Game Finals.
But I was so grateful to Pat. I mean, I couldn't believe it. He had a heart after all. But meaning that wasn't about heart. He was going to do what he thought was right for the team. And that's the right thing, as Lou Lamoriello would have, as anybody would have. He approached the captain, Scott Stevens, and said, do you think it's the right call here? Because he said the same thing. He hasn't played in 2 weeks, but he says he's going to bring some life. He's going to bring a little spark in our room and with the players and with the fans. Maybe it'll give us a little edge, and whatever part it played, whether it was anything at all, it certainly they pulled out all the stops, and I certainly was happy because I'm grateful to go out the way I did, and I owe a lot to Pat Burns for putting me in.
Yeah.
So Kenny, so in 95, we're all on top of the world. We're winning the Stanley Cup, or we're, or at least, on our way to winning the Stanley Cup. And in the background, there's the looming thought of moving to Nashville, which I speak for all of us on this podcast. that was probably one of the most miserable prospects to watch our team win the championship, win the cup, and then be gone the next year. Well, we've had a bunch of players on, and they say they all, you shut all those outside things out and you focus on the game. But, you were here for, at that point, almost 13 years of your life in New Jersey. What was that like for you, for the team, for the players? Were you guys thinking about it? Like, what was that? Because I know the prospect in Nashville almost, was about to devastate myself and the rest of the guys. If that move took place and, at the big party, Chris Terreri holds up the Nashville no way sign. Like, what was that like for you guys?
And little did we know how passionate a fan base and city Nashville would be eventually becoming a National Hockey League team. It took a lot of years, even when the Predators came, so nobody really knew. It was such uncharted waters. I said, no, of course, I would have been devastated. We weren't thinking of that. You just win the Stanley Cup. But to let you know, and I had a little inside knowledge. I was very close to our owner, Dr. John McMullen. So I was kind of pressed on it all along, so I wasn't panicking. But there was some validity to it because they had this is a business too. We know that. He's got to do, what's best for business in the long run, and he was the last person that wanted to move the team. He was from Jersey. He loved it. There was a reason he took a risk and brought them to New Jersey in '82 and spent an exorbitant amount of money at the time because he had to pay territorial rights to Philadelphia Rangers. Rangers, Islanders, $5 million each, and back then for what he paid for the team, everybody says you're crazy. You're his business friends were telling him he was absolutely insane. He said, no, I want to bring hockey to the state of New Jersey and a professional team. So he didn't want to do it, but certainly it was part of the bartering. Nashville was offering him a sweetheart of a deal. I don't know the exact deal, but it was basically rent-free, the building, all the profits to you the first so many years and all this kind of thing. And he was absolutely getting taken to the cleaners by the New Jersey Sports and NJSEA, whatever it was at the time, because it was obviously the arena was run by the state, and he wanted a better deal, right? That's all part of business. I'm not a guy who knows the business aspect as well, obviously, and what transpired from that standpoint. But I know Dr. Mack at the time, if he was going to get, and he did get a better deal. He just wanted a better deal. The deal in Nashville was still 10 times better if he was looking at just financially, but he just wanted to make sure he got a better lease at the Meadowlands, and finally he did, and all's well that ends well, but it would have been devastating, yes. But I had a pretty good feel he was going to do everything in his power to make sure it stayed in New Jersey. Nobody loved the New Jersey Devils like our first owner, Dr. John McMullen.
And we're very thankful for that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So great.
Believe me, he left a ton of dough on the table. So everybody says, oh, everybody's in it for the money in the business. No, they have hearts too. Believe me, all these owners. And you know what? It is a business at times, and you have to, treat it like that on occasion. And yes, there's a balance, obviously. But no, he had to get a better deal, and he did it.
Yeah. Hey, actually, Kenny, you were just talking about the Game 7. I was actually just watching NHL Network had the 03, Game 7 on the other day. And a quick little thing, you were on the ice for the final shift, but also, I didn't even realize this or, kind of forgot on Anaheim, former Devil Steve Thomas, and then future Devils coach Adam Oates were also on the ice, all three of you guys, for that final shift there in Game 7. That's kind of just a weird little coincidence like that,
Yeah, no, you know what? Obviously, you play against guys and have battles, and we're all competing for one thing, and that's to win. That's to win a Stanley Cup. That's why every player in my day, every player in today's game, they play for it. Yeah, it's a nice living and all those things, but there's nothing, I would tell you, like hoisting a Stanley Cup, and that is everybody's dream. So we battle each other, and then we become teammates, and and things come full circle. You see it happen all the time. And again, we talked about even guys that didn't come teammates that you hated on the ice. You become good friends off of it. For me, fortunately, I don't know any other team. I played here my career, but I had I believe we counted at one point, and I don't know if it multiplied, but I had over 210 or 15 teammates in New Jersey, and it seems like I've played with a lot of guys that have been around. Steve Thomas was one of them. Adam Oates I didn't play with. I was coach of the Devils, one of the great playmakers of all time in the game. But yeah, pretty devastating for those guys. And I think about those things at time. I know we lost Game 7 to Colorado in 2001. I don't care if we had won the year before. That was my worst loss of my career in history, not winning it in Game 6 at home. It's all about the cup. Nobody remembers second. No, don't get me wrong. We had a good year. Anaheim, devastation for them to lose Game 7 for sure, because you may not get there again. The Ducks did go on to win a Stanley Cup a few years after that, but it's certain players' only opportunity, like Oates, like a Thomas, whose careers were winding down as well. And it's not easy to win. That's what I learned. And you do. And when it's all said and done and 15, 10, 20 years down the road, yeah, I love to win. But I feel for guys I like or friends or former teammates that never got that opportunity.
Right. And we're learning that now as Devils fans with the current team, rebuilding and getting stronger. And, in this year and on this podcast, we have been talking about, we have seen the growth of Nico Hischier. We feel like he's been maturing in front of our eyes as this season was unfolding. You see the team, probably closer than any of us, Who in your mind, besides Nico, have you seen that development starting to come through over the course of the season on the current Devils roster?
Well, I think there's a lot of guys, and obviously we've seen the improvement, and sometimes it's hard to figure out, or there's no rhyme or reason when we got rid of some really good players. Some of our best players in the team got better, and that is because now young guys and certain players get more opportunity. Even if it's a minute and a half, it's a big difference per game, or get an extra 30 seconds on the power play or penalty kill. That's part of development. That's part of growth. And we've seen that from a lot of young players, and certainly in goal, Mackenzie Blackwood, we've seen the growth of him in the most important position. And a lot of people are wondering about him. Maybe not our Devils fans. People around the league. Is he going to be a number one? Can he be? Well, he's got the capabilities and all the attributes and the athleticism. And yeah, he played a little bit too much for a while there when we had some struggles in goals the first 30 games. Not going to sugarcoat that. And even Mackenzie was up and down, but boy, did we see him come a long way until our terrible pandemic came along here and stopped sports. But he's a guy I'm excited about, because you can't win with it. It doesn't matter. You can have 6 Ray Borks in his prime and 6 Wayne Gretzky's. You're not winning anything without a good goaltender or a decent tandem, shall I say. So, especially in today's game where it's evolved, it's no longer the days of where we could ride Marty Brodeur for 70, 75 games. You just can't do it anymore. The game's too fast, the pace. Goaltenders can't play that much anymore because of the skill of the players in the game from top to bottom now, that goaltenders just face too much on a nightly basis, too many grade A prime scoring chances, and the things these guys are doing with the puck nowadays are amazing. So Blackwood, loved his strides. There's still a ways to go. I like to keep everything in perspective and don't want to get too ahead of myself, but like a lot of people, you see a player have a good week, he's going to be great, or a player have a bad week, he's going to be terrible, or he's a bust. We look at Jack Hughes. Doesn't have a ton of points. The Devils didn't score a lot. I don't look at numbers so much. I've loved the growth of Jack Hughes. I mean, he's 18 years old, the youngest player in the National Hockey League. He looks younger than that. He came from playing junior or 16, 17, 18-year-old kids to playing against men. There's very few generational players like Sidney Crosby, like Connor McDavid, like an Austin Matthews that come in the league and take it by storm. But do I think once he matures physically, understands the game and watching what he's capable on the ice, just watching him away from the puck and the things he does, no, it hasn't added up to a ton of points this season, but you can just see the skill sets. I'm so excited within the next 3 years to see where Jack Hughes is going to be, because he's got a great attitude. He's a great kid. He competes. He works. But he just needs to grow a little bit, fill out his body. When I say grow, he's plenty tall. He's fast as anybody, great edge work, great hands. It's just becoming a man. That's the natural evolution. I'm working out in the gym. It's just becoming a man. He's a teenager. So it's taken him a little time, but I'm not surprised by that. But if you watch his play on a nightly basis, shift by shift, I don't care if he's gone 6 games without a point. I know it's frustrating for him at times, but I love the way he's handled it because he knows it's this close. It's this close where once it kicks in, once he matures, it's going to happen to me, and he's going to be, no question in my mind, an 80, 90-point guy. But I like to preface this so often. Everybody just looks at numbers. It's so overplayed.
It's easy to do.
I'll give you an example. Guys like Scott Niedermayer sacrifice numbers to be a complete player because he wins championships. Scott Stevens went from 70-plus points. I know I'm saying defenseman now, but you can use it for other guys. Patrick probably sacrificed some points. People say, well, why did you sacrifice points? You need offense. Of course you need offense. But you sacrifice to become a team. So if you have 15, 20 less points, the New York Islanders last year, Matthew Barzal dipped 15, 20 points. Do you think that was okay with Lou and Coach Barry Trotz? Because look where they finished. And they won a playoff round. And he played a little more responsible defensively. The Washington Capitals, yes, they need Ovechkin to be a prolific goal scorer. But when they won the Cup, it took them a dozen years to realize, okay, maybe I got to stay a foot inside the blue line and I got to block a shot when it's time and place for it, instead of cheating on the outside and maybe having 65 goals instead of maybe 56, but this is going to be conducive to winning championships. So that's why I sometimes like to caution people, because all fans outside of our organization, all throughout the league, not just our fans, I'm talking throughout the league, he had a terrible year. Look at his numbers. No, it's not about numbers. Growth. It's coming. I don't know if he's going to be a superstar or not. I can't tell you that. I don't have a crystal ball if I'm being realistic. I love what I see, and he brings to the table from a mental standpoint, because he's not a guy that gets down. He believes in himself. I see that. So many young guys can get buried early on. Yeah, he wants points, but the team also didn't insulate him very well at the start. We had everybody to a T from veterans didn't play very good hockey, and you don't usually 10 guys don't play well. A couple guys play not well for a couple weeks. Other guys pick up the slack. We had basically from top to bottom, nobody was playing well. I can't imagine for a number one overall pick, the pressure just from that coming in, and you have no insulation. Nobody's playing well at the time, but he's handled it well. Excited about him. Jesper Bratt. He was on a roll. He's such a slick little player, so tough to contain. Bolquist, I know, is going to be a good player. Best thing that happened to him was going down the minors. We rushed guys too quick. I know he had to play here early. Good to get his feet wet. And also, lastly, I'll preface, and there's tons of players, and you guys can name some, and I'm sure here's how well Binghamton was playing at the end there, made this great run like the St. Louis Blues, and we're going to make the playoffs and make some noise. That's all those young guys were getting development and maturing as players. That you need depth down there. So, because there's always injuries, as we know, that's how your organization becomes better. Now, all of a sudden, they got players that can play down there and that can come up to that. We saw Merkley. We saw guys that, hey, maybe there's something there. Yeah. These guys can play. But everybody says, well, why is this guy? This drives me nuts. And I'm going to relay this to whoever's listening and your fans. I don't say it on Twitter because I'll get in fights. What do you say?
Say it.
Why is this guy on the team? He's on the fourth line, blah, blah. This guy's way better down in the minors. This guy's better. Yes, it's not the 12 most skilled guys that make your team. God, I banged her thing. So I'm back. It frustrates me. It's the team. It's role. Did we not start this whole thing with role players and understanding the importance of certain players to your team? So when you're ripping guys on the fourth line, and I see it, I don't like it, don't get me wrong. They've got to figure out. The organization doesn't always make the right decisions who should be in the lineup, who's not in the lineup, who plays where. But there's a reason behind everything. You can't bring 12 Jesper Bratts to your team. You can't bring the guys in Binghamton, their top line, and all put them on the fourth line here. You need physicality. You need certain elements to your game. It's not the 12 best players. I'll always see, well, why is this guy not in the lineup? He's way better than this guy. Yeah, skill-wise, he might be way better than that guy. It's on that particular night. It's that particular week. It's that guy developing in the minors. So, okay, I've gone on with my rant. I just want people to understand. And no, sometimes they're right. Sometimes the fans are right. I see their comments. I see it. Sometimes they're right. That guy maybe should be in line. This guy shouldn't be. Dying. Jesper Bratt gets benched. He's out of the lineup. Oh, God forbid a 21-year-old sits out a game. Who cares? Wake him up. It doesn't matter. Even if he was playing well, who cares? It still gives you fire. I sat out games where I'm going, it woke him up, and look where he's taking off. But he wasn't playing that bad before. I agree. He wasn't that bad. But when you get pulled out of the lineup, there's a reason. And sometimes it's not justified. Sometimes they just want to see another guy, and he was the odd man out that night, even though he's one of our more skilled guys. Believe me, you don't think it's a wake-up call for Jesper Bratt saying, I don't want to be in and out of the lineup. And what did he do since then? He took off, right? So at times when we look at what's the coach doing? This is crazy. No, there's thought process to it all. Trust me. And no, they don't always make the right decisions. And a lot of times the fans are right on certain players. I agree. I'm not going to say that, but take a step back, take a deep breath, as I didn't while I was ranting about this, and understand that there's a reason and decision behind everything, right or wrong, and it's not always the most skilled guy that stays in your lineup because it sends a message through your room. It sends messages to guys in the minors. Got to understand. And no, sometimes guys in the minors that should be up, it's not fair. It isn't. That's just the way it is at times. That players don't get an opportunity. A lot of guys haven't had careers because they didn't get an opportunity. You hope you're one of those guys that gets that opportunity and make sure you take advantage of it, because sometimes there's a small margin, slim margin for error, and you only get a couple of games. You got to have an impact right away if you're a bubble guy along the way. There's so many things that go into that. That's kind of what I'm stressing here, because I see, and it drives me nuts at times when I see those comments underneath. What's this idiot doing? Why is he in the lineup? Why is this guy not in the lineup? Why is this guy in the minors? No, there's reasons for it.
You know, we talk about that all the time. You would really enjoy watching us every Sunday at 9:00 because we feel the same way you do. Because there's some times where I'm like, we make a joke about something or we talk about something because we like to say we're just a couple guys hanging out, and you know, people get paid to make these decisions, like coaches, like you said, and sometimes things happen for a reason. I'm always advocating for Mikey McLeod to come up just because it's fun, but. All that aside, like I completely agree, because sometimes you go onto Twitter and it just drives you crazy of like the comments of like they don't know what they're doing. This guy doesn't know. It's like just like you said, there's a rhyme and a reason.
And I'm not saying they're always. Trust me, I agree. Some of the comments I'll see some very educated, well thought out comments, and I respect it. I go, okay, you got a point, and I probably agree with you.
A few.
Tough for me to say. I can't go say, oh, I don't agree with the coach on this one. I don't know if I'm going to say that either, but I'll say it to you guys. Sometimes you're absolutely right. Sometimes you're right, but there's too many knee-jerk reactions and comments. And I love it because fans are passionate. I'm passionate. I'm a fan. But, yes, I've been through it. I've seen it all. Heck, I'll be honest. When I was 20 years old, I should never have been sent to the Maine Mariners. Truthful, our team was horrible. I didn't have a great camp. My camp was okay, but we had nobody on defense. We were horrible. They sent me down. I sulked. I whined. I was angry. Best thing that happened to me. Best thing that happened to me for my longevity of my career. I hated it at the time, and there was no way I couldn't make the team after playing as a 19-year-old, playing well, breaking my leg, 20 years old. All of a sudden, they're going to send me down, and this is a team that won 17 games the year before. It wasn't fair. I probably didn't deserve it because my camp wasn't that bad. Well, 20, 30 years down the road, I'm going, man, I didn't want to go down because I was a kid full of you-know-what and vinegar as a youngster. Older, mature, and removed from it a little bit. I go, that might have been the best thing that ever happened to me because I had to earn and pay my dues and earn everything I got and take nothing for granted along the way. If I never went down, maybe I would have. I don't know that. And maybe I wouldn't have had as long a career as I had. And that goes into some of the thinking with some of these young guys as well along the way. You know, when Pavel Zacha went down, came back a few years ago and played really well. No, we still want to see more consistency from, but we're talking about young guys. He's another guy I believe in. And everybody looked at where he was drafted. Forget about that. He's a 200-foot player that's a beast that's trying to find consistency. If you've got Pavel Zacha as your third-line center, when you got Hughes and Jack and Heischer, we know Nico's right there already, and Hughes becomes, you know, that everyday top six forward. Now you're pretty strong down the middle because you've got a 200-foot player who's strong and was playing real well at the end. Takes some guys a little longer to figure out. It's all up to him how good Pavel Zacha can be. Is he going to be a 60, 70-point guy? Probably not. Can he be a real effective 40, 45-point guy and a great two-way centerman? Big, strong, powerful? Absolutely. And that's going to make the Devils good, right? I mean, down the road, but still needs more consistency, still needs development. But that's another guy I look at. There's so many other young guys that I didn't get to touch on. Nico, to me, is the next captain of the New Jersey Devils, I would believe. No question about it. That's my
That's funny. That was actually going to be my next question to you, is who you thought the next captain was. But then you brought up a great point about being sent down, and the Devils did that great behind the scenes with Ty Smith, and you could see that he was really disappointed about getting sent down. And then he goes to Spokane and he just lights it up this year. Do you think he has that same mentality? Like, he didn't want to go down. He thought he had a good enough camp to stay. And do you think that the future is bright with him?
Well, let's wait and see. Whoops. How come it just went to me again? Oh, there we go.
Sam playing with things.
Yeah.
Look, he had a better camp as an 18-year-old than he did as a 19-year-old. And sometimes that happens. It happens a lot. Just like I had a great camp as a 19-year-old, not as good as a 20-year-old, thus getting sent down at the time. And it happens with young defensemen more so, I would even think. I thought he almost made the team as an 18-year-old, and that's real tough for any young player. Nowadays, we're seeing a little more, but for young defensemen, 18 years old, to make the team, and he had that good of a camp, they had a real tough decision. He had a step back as a 19-year-old as far as training camp. So, yeah, he had nothing to prove in junior. Ideally, it would have been best, in my opinion, for him to go to Binghamton. But obviously, because of the rules, you cannot do that. And he had to get sent back to junior. And it's tough mentally because he had not much more to prove down there. And then he was up and down a little bit. And then he really has been incredible and had that 8-point night, I know, back in his team there out west, Spokane. But looking forward to seeing what he can do. But I wouldn't be surprised if he had to spend some time in Binghamton. And it's not the worst thing. He's a youngster. If he has a great camp, proves he can step right in and have an impact, of course, then he's going to get his opportunity. But if he spent some time in the minors, do I think he's got great skill for the way the game is played today and evolved? I don't think we can have 6 Ty Smiths. You still need combination, but he's a puck-moving, smart defenseman, brings offense, continually has to work on the other defensive side of the puck, and that's what he'll do. And I think that's something he focused on in junior, but he's got all great tools and a great mind for the game, and that's what I love, and that's where the game has gone as far as the skill puck-moving defenseman. But I think sometimes, again, the makeup of a team, as more the games change, the more it stays the same from the standpoint that who wins the cup? St. Louis Blues, big, strong on the back end. Still need puck movers, but you can't forget you still need that combination. Teams I was on, you had a big bruiser and a puck mover. Every pairing. That hasn't changed that much if you're going to have success. You know what I mean? So that's where I know the organization. That's what they want to find. It's easier said than done. Not easy to find these guys. So, yes, Ty Smith is a new age defenseman that I think is going to have a lot of success in this league. It may take a little time, may take some time in the American Hockey League, but we need that nice combination, a little more size along with puck movers. Can't have 5 or 6 of the same. It just doesn't work because you still have to be able to defend no matter how much the game has evolved.
Right.
So, Kenny, with the current team, what do you think is going to take to kind of push them over the edge and turn them into a playoff team? Do you think they just need to kind of grow and gel a little bit more? Do you think there's another piece or two that has to come in? You were talking about Jack Hughes about growing up, turning into a man and kind of getting a little bit bigger. Do you think it's just it's that, or do you think bringing another piece or two? I feel like we've got a good goaltender in Mac Black and build out from there. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, look, certainly some real encouraging signs the last 6 weeks since, like I said, since Taylor Hall was gone and Blake Coleman, who I loved. But at the end of the day, once I wrapped my head around that, it made sense. You got the ultimate price for him, and can't forget about Foote coming into the organization, a big, burly, strong left winger. Yeah, that certainly can help, whether he steps right in or not. But having said that, and believe me, we got some sharp people at the top. We need to get bigger on defense. There's no question about it. We need a nice combination. I like some of our pieces there. That's something we probably didn't address enough. We kind of talking about having too many of the same type of D. I like our D, and I think a lot. I like, shall I say, some of the skill sets, and a lot of these guys play National Hockey League. Maybe not all together. Does that make sense? Where you add different pieces. Believe me, management, coaching staff, everybody understands that we need to add a little bit of size in the backhand, a little length. Yes, you still got to be mobile, but you have to be able to defend in your own zone, get the puck up to what our strength is. And I think that's where Coach Nazardine's done a really good job, is he's really got them playing at a fast pace, but the defensemen have done a way better job compared to the first 6-8 weeks of the season of getting the puck to the forwards quickly. We hung on too long, and we didn't have, Victor Hedman back there, or guys that, elite offensive defensemen that can hang on a little bit longer. Get it up to our strength. We got a lot of guys that can skate up front. Well, now they play at a faster pace and they've had more success. And we have defensemen that can move the puck. It was just a matter of, implementing that. And I think that's what they've done. But we need a little more of a combination. The guys are well aware of that. And that will be addressed in the offseason. Whether it's free agency, whether it's a trade, veteran, big defenseman that can have a presence. Certainly always looking up front, but we got so many good young players up front that they're going to continue to get better and grow, like Jack Hughes, but still might take some time. And the Foots, who they got in the trade, and all the draft picks. So the Bolquists, who I think they can accept. And don't forget the guys like Bastian there and certain guys. There's a lot of guys that are going to get opportunities because they're deeper down there now, and that the organizational depth is much better, and some prospects as well that I haven't even named, that I can't even think at the top of my head, but I know there's a handful of them. So it'll be fun, but they will dip their toe in free agency again, I do believe, no question about it, or a trade, because of all the assets they have, draft picks, and certainly prospects.
Yeah, and Kenny, actually staying with the defense, after Andy Green was traded, us as Devils fans, I think, seeing him gone, it really showed how much he was doing night in, night out. And it seemed like Damon Severson was taking a step up. And I know with Devils fans, he can go, one way or another. Do you feel that Damon has those tools to, be one of those core pieces for us to build our defensive core around in the next couple of years?
Yeah, no question. I mean, look, Damon, I know at times very inconsistent, been up and down, takes defensemen a while. As far as all-around defenseman, because when he defends, he can defend. When he doesn't, get a little lackadaisical or turn the puck over, because he's one of our strongest guys in our own zone too. And I talk stronger lower half, where he can pin guys, where he can seal guys. You got to be able to stop plays in your zone. That's why you saw the Devils, our team, spent so much time in their own zone the first 6-8 weeks of the year. It was because it was tough to contain guys, the bigger forwards. Damon's one of those guys that's strong enough to do it. And when he does it, plays a complete game, he's a top defenseman. And I started to see that certainly the last couple of months. And I think he's had a pretty good year. I know everybody looks at the plus minus. I know everybody looks at certain aspects. Well, you're not going to have a good plus minus. I don't put a lot into it when your goal differential is where the Devils is at, basically. But no, David Severson is a top pairing defenseman when he's on his game. Certainly a top 4 defenseman, no question about it. best defenseman on the Devils for me from a skills standpoint, but he's got to do it on a consistent basis. Strictly simple as that. You want to see him play with assertiveness, intensity every night. When he does, I love him because he's big, he's strong, he can move the puck, he can make plays. His gap is tremendous defensively when he's on his game. And he's going to be a key part to this team moving forward. No question about it. I think he's figured it out, and that's what I feel about Damon Severson. It's about, it's got to click for a guy, and sometimes I know he's been around quite a while now, but it takes 400 games. Yeah, where it takes a little bit of time, but he's I liked his play. No, he frustrates you at times. I know, just like the fans and everybody, but he's pretty darn effective, and a guy I think is a big part of it moving forward.
I think you could definitely see that extra kick in his game, though, after Andy was traded, and because he knew he had to step up into that role. This is his opportunity. And I felt, because I was one of those people that was always on the fence with him, there would be days where I'm like, he's brilliant. And then other days where, you're, what's going on here? So, but in the last couple weeks of the season, much like Jesper Bratt, much like Pavel Zacha, when we saw these improvements, I felt like Damon Severson was another one of those players that seemed to be elevating his game as the season went on.
Yeah, I know he has the capabilities, so you want to continue to see him take that step where he's, he played a boatload of minutes, you're right, when Green left, and he's been played the most per time on ice per game on the team, and maybe overworked at times, and that's where they want to add a little depth and more veteran presence on the back end guys. But Damon's that guy that he's powerful skater. He's got the capabilities of being a top pairing defenseman, no question in my mind, and a 45, 50-point guy. But for me, and I've talked to him about it when he was younger, a few years ago, that this is what he's starting to figure out, if I can be precise, is when he takes care of his own end, meaning when he puts concerted effort, assertive. He wants to be an offensive defenseman because he's got the capability to be. But sometimes you forget, defend first. Every time he's had his best games, you look at the score sheet, he's got 1-on-1. He's got 3 points. He's got 2 points. All those games, if we go back, and I'll bet you dollars to donuts, and we looked at him, he had a really good defensive game. A lot of times he wanted to cart before the cart before the horse and be that offensive guy. And a lot of young players do, just like I wanted to be. Everybody wanted to be, especially early in your career.
You want to be on the power play. Yeah.
What can and can't you do? Damon has a lot more skill, I'm talking, than I ever did. But I'm talking about, it doesn't matter what level. You understand what you can and can't do and what makes you successful. And it's believing in that. And for me and Damon, I think getting it now is when he's strong in his own zone, when he makes a conscious effort to be that guy boxing out, guy moving the puck when it's there and not hanging on too long, jumping in the play, that everything else comes natural because he does have a great shot, does have real good offensive instincts. Then he's a complete hockey player, a complete defenseman, and he can be that 40, 45-point guy that continually is out there with 2 minutes left defending a lead too because he has the capabilities. And that's just continuing with the consistency and learning, no question about it for me.
So I have a question, and I started to break from the current team, but this question has been like nagging at me the whole time. In 2003, when Jaguar won the Conn Smythe, did you think that Marty should have gotten the Conn Smythe that year?
Oh, probably, of course. I'm one of those guys that believes it should always go to the winning team, no question about it. But realistically, guys, and I don't know, I guess I'd have to ask Marty. I don't know how he feels about it. Of course he would like to win, but at the time, nobody really cares. All we care about is that Stanley Cup and winning. Team game, it's everything you go through for 4 grueling rounds. So, yeah, no question I felt that year was Marty deserved to win the Conn Smythe. I know how good Jaguar was. He was great. And the Ducks were kind of that surprise team, at the time. But they gave it to him. But I don't quite understand that. I've never understood that philosophy ever. unless it should, for me, for the most part, always go to the winning team. Although I guess if some guy, say a guy had 20 more points than another player, I guess you have to consider it. And I know this is goaltending we're talking about, and Jaguar was probably the biggest reason why they got there. So I guess I have to have an understanding from that standpoint that if a guy was, but say it was an offense, he would have to have 20 more points than the next guy and just dominant playoff. And he lost the Stanley Cup Finals to even be in consideration. But for me, no. For the most part, it should be the team that wins, no question in my mind. And Marty,
sorry, I had to ask that because
Stanley Cup Finals alone. Was that it? Am I right on that stat? I think.
Would you say
three shutouts?
I missed that, what?
Yeah, he had three. He had 7 shutouts all in the three in the finals, and then yep, and then I think 7 in the playoffs.
3 shutouts in the Stanley Cup Finals. You'd better win the Conn Smythe. But you know what? We don't care right now. We got the ring. We've got the memories. We won as a team.
I always thought Jeff Friesen for like an outside shot. I always thought Jeff Friesen, for the game winner against Ottawa the series before, or the series winner against Ottawa before, and then scoring those goals in Game 7. Jeff Friesen was clutch that whole entire playoff year.
But that's why you win championships. Unsung heroes. Even though he was a very talented offensive player, he was terrific for us, no question. Grant Marshall coming in 2000 and or 2003, shall I say, the same year, and making a great play and scoring some big goals. I think he scored an overtime goal. That's how you win championships. Yeah, your top guys have to be your top guys on certain nights, but teams defend your top guys. They have a game plan. Defense and systems can bottle up real high-skilled offensive players. So if you don't have third and fourth liners that can chip in with big goals at big moments, that's where heroes are made. And you look at any team that's won a cup, not just ours, you can go down the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There's always some hero that we go, wow, he got the game winner. Mike Rupp scored the game winner, Game 7. Mike Rupp was an unknown back in 2003.
Yep.
He scored the winner in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals for the New Jersey Devils. Not Patrick Elias. Patrick was a big reason we got there. But think about that for a second. So it happens all the time. If you don't have those guys that come up big, Randy McKay in 95, 8 goals and in the playoffs and big goals, fourth liner.
Oh, yeah.
Bobby Holy. I mean,
crash line.
You see it time again throughout history, throughout the league. That's why you need depth. That's why you need all those guys and not just your star guys that win you championships.
But that seemed to be like the hallmark of the Devils. It was always those role guys that would really kind of step up, and the Devils always seemed to be like a team. Whenever they won all the 3 Stanley Cups, the Devils were always just a team from top to bottom, and there was everyone, like you said, probably because of Lamoriello. Everyone had their role, everyone played it, and they did what they did, and the result of that was 3 Stanley Cups in. I can't do the math right now because I'm terrible at math, but 3 Stanley Cups in a short period of time. Yeah. 8 years.
Now, you know what? But you could say that about most teams. You look at other teams, and yes, again, stars. We had stars like Niedermayer and Stevens and doing their thing. Niedermayer offensively more, Stevens with the big hits, and certainly the Patrick Eliashes and Jason Arnott, the A-line in 2000, obviously. But yeah, for the most part, it was always kind of each round a different player, a different line. And obviously with the great defense we had year after year and the great goaltending and that consistency and balance and continuity of so many guys playing together for so many years, which is hard to do. And that's just a handful of guys that you needed. And Sergei Brylin, such a great role player and kind of a 5-tool player. You call him that utility guy in baseball, that term you use, could play in every situation and was on all 3 cup teams. I mean, we had a core group of 5 guys that have been all 3 teams. That's not easy to do even back then. Now it's almost impossible, but just to keep guys together and have that core group that has those consistent message and belief in what you're doing, and then you have to translate it to everybody else. But we already had the Eliashes who'd been there, and the Maddens and Pandolfos. You go on, Gomez's, you go on down the list. All those guys were so key. The great youth coming in with the veteran players, it all kind of meshed beautifully together. But we could look at most teams in the Stanley Cup and that win the Cup and how they're 4 lines deep, 6 defensemen deep, guys, unexpected heroes that score big goals night in, night out. It happens all the time. Yeah, you need, like Washington, they need their Ovechkins and to do their thing, and Kuznetsovs. Devontae Smith, Pelly, who's not even in the National Hockey League, and former Devils, score 7 goals in the Stanley Cup playoffs that year, and some huge ones along the way. Maybe it doesn't last, and the Devils don't win the Cup in 2012, but how imperative was Ryan Carter, Bernier, and Giunta? I mean, how good were they through that run? No, they didn't go on to, they had good careers, but it's the timing of making sure you fill those pieces and fill those roles. It only usually lasts a couple of years. You know what I mean? Your bottom 6 guys, but you got to make sure you get those right pieces to win. And most teams did it. We had it for years, obviously, in that depth and the same message from Lou Lamoriello, which is hard to do. That's why teams don't get there and how hard it's to win. Everybody understand the role. We hear sacrifice. What does that mean? Making sacrifices that, okay, well, we've got the A-line. They're going to do a lot of the damage offensively, but I know I need to score once in a while, John Madden, Paul Awful, but I got to defend. And I'll get chip in where Madden scored a big shorthanded goal when he needed to. So they're saying to themselves, Madden might have been saying, I'm a young guy. I'm capable of bringing more offense, but I got to make sure I take care of the penalty kill and the defensive side of the game. We've got a top line. You know what I mean? Does that make sense what I'm saying? That these guys, those are the sacrifices very talented, skilled guys make. Patrick Elias, who was an all-purpose player, could play in every situation, understood that from a very young age that, well, yeah, he wants to get points. He wants offense, but he understood that I've got to make sure I don't try to beat the opposition 1-on-3 and turn the puck over and it's in the back of the net and it costs us game 5 of the second round, and before you know it, you're out of the playoffs. We had more players than not that understood that and knew how to make sacrifices that, yeah, well, they don't have to take as many risks when it's not there, high-risk plays, but still produce when they have to, like Patrick did so many times in 2000 against Philly and the game winner and the past are not and stuff like that. That was kind of the types of teams we had for so many years, and that was the message, and you better buy in or you weren't going to be part of it.
Yeah. And Kenny, actually, you're just talking about offensive players being smarter and not taking risks. Just thinking about the current team, one player who I think has a lot of upside offensively and seems to be learning how to not take those big risks in those tough situations is Nikita Gusev. I was just wondering what your reaction was to his play, because obviously in the offseason there was a lot of hype when he got signed, and there was a lot of things that everyone was talking about with the Devils in the offseason. And then when we came in, we saw Nikita really just start to develop into the North American game. So I was just curious of what your take is for Nikita.
Can't even believe we haven't brought him up. I love him. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm saying all roles and plays. Today's game, every year, it didn't matter who you are. The teams I won championships, we had a ton of skill. You need skilled players, and he's probably the most skilled as far as being able to make a play, something out of nothing. You need players that are capable of that. And, yeah, you knew it was going to take some time, and he did it in the KHL. I know the National Hockey League is the best league in the world, but you knew he wasn't going to be a defensive specialist or a wizard. Just learn and understand. Guys like him, you don't mind taking extra risks because 8 out of 10 times he's going to make that play because he has that vision and great set of hands and elusiveness to make a play when 2 or 3 guys are on him. So, yeah, you live with the odd turnover or mistake or in the offensive zone because of the great skill he has. But he's been so fun to watch, hasn't he? I mean, he's just – game was getting better and better, and I can't wait to next year and see what he can do, because you knew it would take some time, not only get acclimated to North America, but to the National Hockey League game. But he's just a outstanding talent, great kid, wizard with the puck. He just loved watching his high skill on a nightly basis, and it was getting better and better for sure. So he's a lot of fun. And I know he's 27, 28 years old, but he's going to be a big part of that team next year. And there's always short windows. You make the playoffs, you've got a chance. And you can get there quicker than – I know we have to have some patience. Still, we all do, and we're all impatient at times, including me. But you can be at the bottom and be right in the playoffs the next year with a player or two or move or two and development of a couple of young guys or two, and everything kinds of comes together. All of a sudden, you can be a playoff team again. And now with the competitive balance in this league, everybody's got a shot. Yeah, there's the upper echelon teams, but they can be upset at times, So guys like Nikita Gusev is going to be real important next year if the Devils are going to have any chance at, being a playoff team and eventually being a contender here. And he's a highly skilled guy that you have to have. He's a lot of fun, though, boy. I mean, he brought us out of our seat at times. He does it kind of more subtle. It's not about dancing three guys. It's about a little shoulder dip or a little movement of the puck. I can't believe he just made that pass when you really slow it down and look and watch him just elude a stick check because he's got that vision and great set of hands to maybe pull that puck back another half foot and have the patience and confidence to make a play. He was so much fun for me to watch, for sure, as I'm sure for you guys. And yet, I'm still hoping we're going to see some hockey at the end of the year here, guys. We don't know that.
We all are.
Right. We're all hoping.
Yeah. We're talking about moving forward, too, so we'll see.
So I got a sort of random last question for you, Kenny. You were there from the start with the red and green jerseys?
Hang on. I had to bring my friend in. Hey, and you're not going to believe what his name is.
Devil.
Stanley.
Oh,
Stanley for Stanley Cup.
That seems
nice.
That seems.
And I have a little Leslie who's sleeping, and his name is Puck. But this is Stanley's stuff.
I'll tell you what. That seems to be the theme of this quarantine is family pets showing up in things like this, which is phenomenal.
Look at my
even on news broadcasts. But I have kind of a random last question. You were there for the original jerseys in the red and green. You were there for the color change to the red and black. Are you partial to either color set, or did you like both?
Like both. I'm all about. Put it this way, I like tradition. I thought the green, the sharp green, the throwback jerseys they brought back were really good looking. I liked them, but I loved the change at the time to black and red, believe me, because I thought it was, just a sharper look. And obviously you got to go with the times. I'm very open-minded. I know some people aren't. Some are very traditionalist and don't want third jerseys. Third, fourth jerseys, to me, I want everything. I think it's great. I agree. Now why you're seeing more. I'm all about making it fun for the fans. Some fans I know are old school, don't want to see it, but most from what I talk to, and including me, I go with the times. I like innovation. I like different jerseys and fun jerseys and third jerseys. So I like when they bring the old one back once in a while. I think it looks real sharp. I'd like to see a black jersey. I'd like to see a lot of different things for jerseys. So no question, guys. I'm very open-minded when it comes to that. I like throughout the league, I think there's a lot of sharp third jerseys, third and fourth jerseys.
Yep.
Exactly.
No, I totally agree.
Kenny, before we let you
we're that way, even with the Devils, I think we got a good, young, innovative office staff and everybody, so that's a possibility. Oh, okay, Stan, go. He had enough. I think they have great vision, and I see us being, so fan friendly too nowadays, and open minded, and they listen and take advice too. So we'll see along the way what transpires, but yeah, I'm all for some fun. I love colors. I love different uniforms, and I saw somebody put out, an image of a black one with kind of a devil head and stuff. I love that stuff. I think it'd be cool for a third jersey. Fourth jersey.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Kenny, before we let you go, I got a little story and a question to ask you. back in 2002, and I usually have dumb stories and dumb questions to end a podcast, but back in 2002, rumor has it that you were building a house and you were moving into town, and I didn't believe it. So I took the girlfriend I was dating at the time, her little sister, trick or treating, and I said I'll wear my Martin Brodeur goalie gear to your house, but I didn't really believe it. But lo and behold, your brother actually answered the door and said trick or treat or whatever. He's like, "Oh, are you kids from town?" Mendham.
Yes.
Yeah.
My brother was there? Or a friend? You sure?
It's probably a friend. He looked like you.
Because I had someone live with me at the time. That's going back a long time. Was I not there? Did I come to the door?
No, you didn't come to the door, but what happened was...
I always came to trick-or-treaters. That was my favorite holiday. I must not have been there.
But it was pouring that night, and I just want to apologize. Yeah, I just want to apologize because as I was walking down the hill, because it was so brand new, there was like new sod on the ground or something, or hay, that I actually tumbled in the goalie gear from top to bottom, and I was like totally muddy. And whoever answered the door thought I was in middle school or high school, but actually I just graduated college, so I kind of felt embarrassed. But I never told anybody that story.
I would have loved to have a video on that. Would have been great, but I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I couldn't have been there because I love Halloween, and if I'm home, not many kids come around anymore. But I used to love giving out the chocolate to the kids, chocolate bars and things like that. I love seeing all the costumes.
That's great. Well, Kenny, thank you so much for taking the time out today to coming on to the podcast.
Thank you.
We're blown away. It's very rare that
thank you so much.
We have a video conferencing with a player, a former player, or anybody. But this was a great conversation. We hope to have you back on the podcast.
My pleasure, guys. And I know there was a lot of stories. This was a long podcast. I'm not used to it, but this was mental therapy for me too, guys. I know you're big fans. I appreciate it. Keep up the great work. And I had a lot of fun with you guys.
Great. Thank you.
Very cool.
The Devils fans, we miss you. We all love you guys. Can't wait to see you at Arena again in the near future. But our safety and health is number one, first and foremost. We'll be back soon enough. Everybody stay healthy, stay inside, and social distancing 6 feet apart if you must. But stay home.
Great.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Kenny, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Till next time, Devils fans, let's go Devils.
Devils. Take it easy.